How about those Knicks, baby? Ariel Huck Porty. You're going to put some respect on Huckamania's name, all right, brother? He's taking over the NBA. But once again, we're not here to talk about the Knicks and how they won again last night. We're here to talk about Nintendo Switch 2 stuff because nobody wants to hear me talk about the Knicks, but people do want to hear me talk about some Switch 2 related things. Now, of course, yesterday we covered some of the third quarter financial report that came out and the subsequent information we got from that. It was an interesting report. Obviously, system sales are down sharply. Software sales are a bit down as well. Things are still selling. Things are still doing well. It's just comparatively year over year, it's obviously not doing, well, quite as well because of the fact that there's a new system on the horizon. That's what people want to get into with this. Now, since then, we've actually gotten some additional information from Nintendo President Furukawa himself regarding the price potential of the Nintendo Switch 2, and I think that's a very interesting thing to dive into. But before we get into that, I do want to briefly mention that Nintendo actually updated the timing of the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct that is taking place on April 2nd. They have now attached a time to it so you can know when you need to wake up. And if you're on the West Coast, pal, hey, once again, you get screwed over. You might as well actually don't move to the East Coast. Like, East Coast is happy. You know, we're good over here. We don't need some of those strange Californian people, you know, the celebrities and stuff like that. You can keep those over there, but the event will be taking place at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific time on April 2nd, I should say, of 2025. And that, of course, is going to be the full unveiling of the system. We'll probably get pretty much everything you want to know from it. Obviously, the software is going to be the most interesting thing. You could sit there and talk about specs and this, that, and the other all day. And I mean, that's cool. You know, it gives you a baseline to go on and whatnot. But realistically, we're all interested in the games. What are the games and how are the games going to run? Beyond that, EA pretty much just confirmed that Madden will be coming back to the Nintendo platforms on the Nintendo Switch 2. And I think that's pretty interesting. Now, a lot of people don't care for Madden. Honestly, I've soured on the Madden franchise along with most yearly sports games. But you got to remember that, like, Madden is still a great seller in the West. And EA obviously didn't do any sports games, well, beyond like FC and FIFA and stuff like that. They didn't do any Western sports games on the system, for that being the original Nintendo Switch. So to have Madden coming to the Switch 2, according to EA, I think that's an interesting topic in and of itself. I'm not going to talk about it too much because sports ball talk. I can barely talk about my Knicks on this channel. But realistically speaking, that kind of shows you how third parties are going to be with this system. I think they're going to be very aggressive. I think if there's any chance and any way of getting it onto the Nintendo Switch 2, I think that's what they're going to do. Now, I don't necessarily think a lot of companies are going to prioritize the Switch 2 version over something like the PlayStation 5 version with select games. I mean, they're probably not going to build Madden around the Switch 2 and port it to the PS5 instead of building it for the PS5 and porting it to the Switch 2. But, you know, who's to say, really? Who's to say how that is actually going to go? Kind of depends on game sales and software sales for the system. But yes, if you like good old American football, none of that football stuff, Madden is coming to the Switch too. But we have to talk about pricing with this system because Nintendo President Furukawa did give a little bit of an update on how pricing is going to be handled. And honestly, I think it's a very positive statement. Now, this came from the shareholder Q&A portion of things, and people were asking, you know, the investors were asking about the price of the system. Now, obviously, that's something that is going to be disclosed on April 2nd, probably along with a release date as well. But looking at the current economy that we're in, looking at what the other systems are priced at right now, with PlayStation 5 being $500, the Pro being much more, the Series X being $500, but the Series S being cheaper, and of course, cheaper iterations of the PS5 and the Xbox Series. Investors want to know, like, How much is the system going to cost? Is it going to be reasonably priced, all things considered about what's going on in the economy all over the world? Well, President Furukawa said the following: not only does Nintendo have to take into account Japan's increased inflation rate, it also has to consider that the exchange rate environment has changed considerably since the Switch launched in 2017. Nintendo also has to consider that affordability that our products or our customers expect from Nintendo products. Nintendo needs to take all of these factors into account when considering the price of its products. So basically saying, yes, the original Switch was $300, but I don't see that happening now. There's inflation. There's the exchange rate that has changed drastically since 2017. It's kind of weird when you really sit back and think about like how inflation works and how all this stuff works, because like money isn't even like really real. So that's a topic for another day. Like I could talk about weird conspiracy stuff like that all the time, but such a drastic change from 2017, I pretty much think this is saying, yeah, you're not going to see this at $300 because, I mean, that's not financially viable for us right now. But then following it up by saying, Nintendo needs to consider the affordability that our customers expect from Nintendo products. And obviously, that doesn't necessarily extend to like controllers and maybe even software at this rate, with $70 games looming on the horizon. I think that's more so on the hardware side, because Nintendo hardware has always been extremely competitively priced and usually is on the lower end of the spectrum, if not the cheapest system that is available on the marketplace. And that's kind of what helps them as, I wouldn't say necessarily like their identity, but it helps them, get people in on day one onto their platform of choice. So I think by saying this, $500, I just don't see them wanting to do that. $500 right now in this economy probably isn't considered to be affordable. Especially comparing, something like the PlayStation 5 base disc model at $500, you're not really competitively, pricing yourself in the overall marketplace. So where does that kind of leave us? I think that leaves us at the $400 price point. It's a happy medium between $300 and $500. It's right in the middle, and it's still more affordable than what the other companies are doing. Now, you could sit there and say semantics with, system variants, the discless PS4 or PS5, the Xbox Series S, but I think Nintendo, having the lead platform, having the main platform that they have, this not being the cheapest option, this being, the premium option at the $400 price point, and then potentially down the road, you do something like a Nintendo Switch 2 Lite at an even cheaper price point and stuff like that. Like, I think that's kind of going to be the move for them this generation. And I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense. I really think Nintendo, people, and I'm probably guilty of this too. Like I make mistakes sometimes, but when you look at like budgets of games and stuff like that, like they've become so overinflated, but Nintendo kind of just doing their own thing, while people might have made fun of it and been like, oh, well, this game would look so much better on this platform or on that platform. It's like, does that really matter nowadays? The whole reason that the video game industry in the West is sinking like a stone in water is because of the fact that they have these overinflated budgets. They have these, high yielding games that, yes, they cost a lot of money to make. So of course we have to sell millions and millions and millions of copies, whereas Nintendo sells 2 mil of something that took a little bit of work. And it's like, great, we just made a whole bunch more money. So it's almost like the philosophy that, you don't need to necessarily be cutting edge when pushing technology is working out in Nintendo's favor. Now, of course, this is not a confirmation of the price of the system. We won't know that really until I think we'll get some leaks, closer to the Nintendo Direct for the Nintendo Switch 2. I think retailers are going to start putting up pre-order links and stuff like that. And I'm going to say I'm in the $400 camp. I know there's a lot of people that think $450, $500, and maybe that's the case, But I just don't see that happening. I don't think investors would be happy with that. I don't think Nintendo themselves would be happy with that. You know, if you got to charge $70 for more of the games to make up for the cheaper price of the system, then like, so be it. Hardware usually doesn't sell at a large, you know, profitability anyways. It's more so just covering your ass and then potentially making a little bit on top of that. So I think that that is the move. But what do you think? Because I mean, really what I think doesn't matter. If it did, I'd be sitting here talking about Ariel Hukporti, the man, the best backup center for the New York Knicks, at least as it stands right now. Let me know what you think of everything in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. I'm not a Nintendo YouTuber. Look, have PlayStation do something interesting. Have Xbox do something interesting. All Xbox is doing is putting all their shit on the PlayStation 5. Age of Empires is now coming to PlayStation 5 as well. It's like once a week, Xbox puts a game on PlayStation. It's like, holy hell, man. What are y'all doing? Maybe that's a video for another day as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Hit subscribe if you're new. Later.